All things said on this video are based on my experiences and those of my friends. Take everything with a grain of salt. South Korea went from being one of the poorest countries post-Korean War to the 11th largest economy in the world. Companies you may know like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, Kia, and BTS, not a company, but you get what I'm saying, are all Korean. Coined the miracle of the Han River, the South Korean economic growth is indeed a miracle. One of the key factors that led to Korea's rapid economic growth is the work ethic of Korean people. However, this did not come without a price. South Koreans have some of the longest working hours in the developed world. In fact, before July 2018, most employees in Korea worked an average of 68 hours per week. From the 1st of July 2018, the government mandated that these be reduced to 40 hours and a maximum of 12 hours overtime, meaning that a person can only legally work 52 hours a week in Korea. So, what can you expect when you work for a Korean workplace? Number 1, do not get sick. In the past 4 years, I've worked for about 7 Korean workplaces, and the one most common theme amongst all of them was that do not get sick. In fact, if you do end up getting sick, you are highly discouraged from taking an entire day off because you are still expected to show up for work unless you're dying. In public schools, they are given 11 sick days per contract, but do not think that it's going to be easy to take any of them. In fact, if you do end up taking a sick day, it's not uncommon for one of your colleagues to show up at your door to check up on you. Now, the thing about that is you never really know if they are coming to check up on you because they were so concerned about your well-being and they just wanted to check if you need help, or if they are showing up at your door because they suspected that you probably are not really sick. If you end up getting that sick day, then please do not expect more than 1 day. In my case, in 2018, I was sick. I had bronchitis. So the first thing that I did in the morning was to call both of my co-teachers and let them know that I couldn't come to work because I couldn't speak. I went to see an ENT and he told me to relax and not speak for 3 days. So I thought, well, if I can't speak for 3 days and I'm a teacher, that means I can just chill at home, right? I still showed up to work every single day. I would watch Netflix, watch YouTube, fall asleep. It didn't really matter that I was at work and had zero work to do, but what mattered was that I was at work. So rule number 1 about working in Korea is that do not get sick. The best way to preserve harmony in your workplace, especially if you are new, is to just say yes to everything. So if the boss invites you to dinner, especially in your first year of working in Korea, you say yes to those dinners. Those dinners are often seen as ways for team building. If a boss offers you something to drink, even if you don't like it, you say yes, take a sip, and maybe try to stash it away. When the boss offers you something to eat, which happens a lot, say yes to the boss. If the boss asks you to jump, basically ask how high. Be ready for whatever. You'll be told a lot of things last minute, especially if you do not speak Korean. Chances are you won't always know what is going on until whatever it is that's going on is actually going on. In my first year, I once walked into the classroom and I found parents sitting. Find out in that moment that I was actually having an open class. Now, the thing about open classes in Korea is that teachers put on a show to prove to the parents that their kids are getting the best education possible. I wasn't given that chance, so I kind of had to make do with what I had, and luckily the reviews came out really positive. Same year, photo day, I walked into the school, found all the teachers were wearing suits. I had no choice but to go and pose for that picture. I was pretty plain, but cute. 4. Don't be late,
but totally stay here forever?
This one is a no-brainer for literally any workplace around the world, but I'm from South Africa and we're pretty chilled over there, and I just wanted to emphasize just how strict Koreans are about arriving to work on time. Maybe not so much in public schools. I used to work for a public school, and in my job, they were pretty chilled about me being late. When I started working for a private academy, I had to undo that behavior because in my current job, they have a check-in system. One of my friends works for a Korean company, not a teacher. He has to be at work exactly on time, not even a minute late. If he happens to be 1 minute late, then they take away one of his vacation days. This is the same company where he can work up to 12 hours, even on Saturdays, some days, without getting extra pay. But if he's even 1 minute late, he gets punished for it. So in Korea, definitely be on time, but you can totally stay forever in your job. In fact, staying at work for longer is seen as you being very dedicated to your job and is actually seen as very good employee behavior.
5. Let's get personal.
In the beginning, it's very common for your Korean colleagues to ask you some really personal questions in an attempt to get to know you better. Some of those questions may be things like, are you married? Do you have kids? How old are you? Are you single? In fact, in Korea, you can be asked those questions by random people that you just met on the streets. But at work, they may even try to set you up. In my first year in Korea, there was a certain first grade teacher that I had a crush on. But I found out that he was actually getting married later that year. There was also another teacher who had arrived 6 months after I had arrived. And then one evening, we were out in those work dinners. Everyone was wasted, having fun, and very chatty. The 5th grade teacher came to me and was like, hey Nolu, where is your boyfriend? And I'm like, yo, I don't have one. And I was very single back then. And then he looked at the guy who was sitting next to me, the new guy, and he said, oh, he's single too, you guys should talk. And he left. So I didn't want to make things awkward by keeping quiet. So I turned around and I looked at this guy and I was like, oh, by the way, my name is Nolu. And he introduced himself and we had a pretty good relationship. Not romantic relationship. We had a really good work relationship. What I'm trying to say is it's very common that your colleagues may try to get really personal with you. Try to tell them what you want them to know. And anything you don't want them to know, just keep it to yourself. But just be chilled about it. It's very normal here. Despite anything that I've said, Koreans are some of the friendliest people I have ever met. If Koreans like you, you will know it and you will feel it. Working in Korea could either break you or make you. In fact, one of the reasons that has made it so easy for me to stay in Korea for almost 4 years is just how accommodating and wonderful Koreans can be. So if you really want to come to Korea, don't let anything anybody has said, including me, prevent you from coming into Korea. In fact, I'm all for people coming to Korea and experiencing Korea for themselves. The only thing that you need to do is just be open-minded when you come here and just know that when in Rome, you do as Romans do. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next week.